Hey everyone, welcome to This Explainer. I am absolutely thrilled you're joining me today, because we're looking at a story that genuinely has the power to completely rewire how you think about your goals, your time, and your everyday habits. Have you ever felt like you have massive potential, but somehow, year after year, you just aren't getting to where you actually want to be? Well, let's dive right into this, because the answer to that exact frustration is perfectly captured in a pretty remarkable tale about two very different seeds.
Look, I want you to be totally honest with yourself for a second. How many times have you said something like, "Oh, I'll start that project tomorrow," or "I'm definitely going to hit the gym on Monday," or maybe "I'll figure out my finances next month"? We all do it, right? It's basically the ultimate universal human struggle. We routinely trade the immense actionable power of today for the comforting, completely consequence-free illusion of tomorrow, usually while we're just sitting on the couch scrolling through our phones. But to understand exactly what that trade-off is actually costing us, we really need to look at a compelling case study.
So meet Deepak. He's 25 years old, blessed with fantastic health, lots of physical strength, and a mind that is just overflowing with incredibly vivid dreams. He would constantly tell his friends, with absolute unshakable certainty, that one day he was going to be the absolute wealthiest farmer in their entire village. He'd talk endlessly about his fields glowing with these beautiful golden crops and how people would literally travel miles just to seek out his wise advice. And the village loved his ambition. They really loved the sound of his grand dreams.
But there was a pretty glaring problem. While his fantasies were beautiful, his daily reality was, well, a whole lot different. When the sun came up and the other farmers marched out to break a sweat in their fields, Deepak, he stayed in bed. When the rest of the village was enduring the blazing sun just to make a living, Deepak was essentially earning a PhD in hammock studies. He was just sitting comfortably in the shade, talking about his golden future. He absolutely loved the intoxicating feeling of imagining success, but he completely and totally despised the gritty, unglamorous hard work required to actually make it happen.
Then, one evening, Deepak's uncle, an older, incredibly wise farmer, comes over for a visit. He walks up to Deepak's land, looks down, and sees this amazingly fertile soil that is just completely empty. Literally nothing but dry dirt. So he asks his nephew, "Deepak, you talk constantly about these golden crops, but all I see here is dry earth. Why is your land completely empty?" Deepak just kind of laughs it off and replies with the ultimate dream killer. He says, "Don't worry, uncle, I'll start it tomorrow. Just you wait and see."
His uncle just lets out this long, heavy sigh. He'd heard the word tomorrow 1,000 times before, and he knew exactly what it really meant. It meant never. So the uncle decides right then and there to teach Deepak a lesson he is never going to forget. He reaches deep into his pocket, pulls out 2 small pouches, and hands them over to his nephew. Inside were 2 very different magical seeds.
Now, the uncle laid out some very strict, unbending rules for these seeds. The first one is the seed of ambition. If you plant it, you absolutely must water it and care for it every single day. If you do that, it will eventually grow into this magnificent tree that provides fruit, shade, and wealth. The second one is the seed of laziness. And the uncle gave a stern warning here. This seed requires 0 effort. But if you put it in the ground, it will grow automatically, at a terrifying speed, spreading wild weeds that will choke out and destroy absolutely everything else in your field. The uncle looks Deepak right in the eye and says, "Both are in your hands. Your future depends on which one you care for."
Deepak, of course, is absolutely thrilled. He's thinking, "Man, this is easy. I want success, so obviously I'm just going to plant the seed of ambition." He fully, 100% intended to do the right thing. But intentions, as we are about to see, are utterly useless if you don't back them up with action. So let's watch how this delay actually builds up over time, because it's pretty relatable. On that very first morning, Deepak wakes up, stretches, and feels just a little bit tired. So he says, "You know what? I'll plant it tomorrow." Days pass by in a total blur. Eventually, just to get the whole thing over with, he haphazardly tosses both seeds into the ground, figuring he'd sort out the watering and maintenance later. Weeks drift by. His days are entirely consumed by sleeping in, gossiping with his friends, and just daydreaming about how insanely successful he's going to be. He completely forgot about those seeds out in the dirt.
Then, one afternoon, he finally strolls out to his field and just freezes in absolute horror. The seed of laziness hadn't just grown, it had completely exploded. Thick, dense, super aggressive weeds had totally smothered the entire plot of land, and buried underneath all that destructive overgrowth was the seed of ambition. It was tiny, frail, totally deprived of water, and literally on the verge of death. By doing absolutely nothing, Deepak hadn't just paused his progress. His passive inaction had actually acted as an incredibly active, destructive force.
Right at that moment, the uncle returns, takes one look at the ruined, overgrown field, and delivers this devastating reality check. He says, laziness grows on its own, spreads fast, and destroys everything in its path. Your laziness has already stolen your future. He explained that a dream is basically like a tiny seed. It only stays alive if your daily actions actually breathe life into it. Without action, the dream dies, while the laziness just thrives on autopilot.
Hearing those words, Deepak just fell to his knees. He reaches into the dirt, touches that dying little seed of ambition, and tears actually well up in his eyes. It finally clicked for him. Dreaming is entirely useless. Only action matters. That night, he couldn't even sleep. The sheer weight of his wasted time and squandered opportunities was just crushing him. But right then, sitting in the dark, he made a ferocious decision. If he didn't change his ways right now, laziness was going to own him forever.
So, the very next morning, everything changed. Before the sun even crested the horizon, Deepak was out in the dirt, violently ripping those thick, stubborn weeds out of the ground by hand. And let me tell you, fixing deeply ingrained laziness is a brutal physical and mental struggle. His back was screaming in pain. His bare hands literally started bleeding from the thorns. But he absolutely refused to stop. He cleared the weeds, and for the first time in his entire life, he carefully watered that seed of ambition. And he did it again the next day, and the next.
And the results of that relentless daily action? They were spectacular. Slowly but surely, the dying seed recovered. It became a sturdy plant. And with continuous, daily discipline, that plant erupted into a massive, magnificent tree. It gave him fruit, it gave him much-needed shade, and yes, it brought him the wealth he had always dreamed of. Deepak had completely transformed his identity. He went from being the village joke who just slept in the shade to being widely respected as the fierce farmer who literally went to war with his own laziness and won.
Okay, let's zoom out from the village for a second, because obviously this explainer isn't really about farming at all. It's about you. It's about me. It's about every single unfulfilled goal that is sitting in the back of your mind right now. Every single one of us carries these exact two seeds inside of us at all times. The seed of what we could be and the seed of the comfort that will absolutely destroy us.
We have to fundamentally wrap our heads around this stark reality. Nurturing your ambition is never, ever going to be easy. It demands your sweat, your daily effort, and unrelenting discipline. It requires you to bleed a little bit, pulling out your own bad habits. On the flip side, allowing laziness requires absolutely nothing from you. Zero effort. But you have to understand, it is not a neutral state. It is an automatic, fast-spreading cancer to your potential. If you're ambitious in your mind, but lazy in your actions, you are exactly like Deepak, standing in a field of weeds, wondering where the gold is.
Seriously, stop waiting for tomorrow. Tomorrow is just a myth that protects your laziness. Rip out the weeds of your bad habits today. Water your ambitions right now. Because the stark truth of the matter is this: the longer you wait, the more your dream dies. So, I'm going to leave you with this one question to think about. Which seed are you going to water today?